Hello, YouTube. So I want to talk to you today about my Acting Your Age campaign, which is a campaign that I launched in 2018 to highlight the invisibility of middle-aged actresses on screen and on film, especially leading in the UK. We're seeing a huge resurgence of talent of actresses who would traditionally by now be totally unemployable in the US. So you're seeing amazing work coming from actors like Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon and Nicole Kidman. However, in the UK, this message seems to be taking a lot longer to get through. We have more documentaries on UK TV about paedophiles than we do comedies and dramas led by middle-aged women. Still, the vast majority of vehicles, of new commissions, of new drama and of new comedy is predominantly led by middle-aged men. So we have things like the amazing Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who is leading and writing and performing fantastic material, but she is young. We are also seeing much younger women coming through and leading, but still we're lagging so far behind in our representation of middle-aged women. Now, I'm a middle-aged woman. I went back into acting at the age of 50 after being a full-time carer. And in the last 4 years since I relaunched my acting career, I've had 2 castings, both of whom, both parts went to younger actresses, even though I did well in the audition. So it's not just bitterness, although obviously it is, because it was just that did it. But when I launched my campaign in The Guardian, and I was inundated with actresses in middle age, all of whom were saying, this is incredible that you're talking about this. No one's really supposed to talk about it. We're not supposed to complain. It will impact on our work. And that to me is very oppressive. You'll hear, and I have heard this week, 2 actresses, very famous actresses, talking about how things are way better now, much, much better than they've ever been in the industry. And yet that doesn't really match up with the data and the statistics that we've got. Ofcom did a big diversity report a couple of years ago, and there was a deep dive done into gender representation on screen, particularly by our national broadcaster. And once again, the news this week has been that the presenter Sue Barker is going to no longer be presenting her show. We've got the wonderful Jane Garvey and Jenny Murray both leaving Woman's Hour. And these are all older women. We're not seeing the same effects happening to middle-aged men. In fact, if we're going to talk about the BBC as a prime example and as our national broadcaster with a charter to fulfil representation of everyone in the UK, they are very poor in their representation. I think part of that campaign, part of the information that came out of Ofcom, was the statistics that were done showing that there are 3 times as many middle-aged men on screen at the BBC than there are women. So we still have a lot more to do. I wanted to do a video to run hand in hand with my campaign. I've already done a campaign film, which is great. If I'll put the information and link to it in the info here. But I wanted to talk today because I think one of the things I wanted to talk about was what we're seeing now. Since I launched my campaign 2 years ago, and at that time, even saying middle-aged women was seen as a very worrying and offensive term, we are now starting to see that. But when you have feminists of the sort of profile of Caitlin Moran, who has released a new book talking about being a middle-aged woman, she very much recommends Botox as a choice for her. And that's okay, but a lot of the interviewing I heard her do was she was sort of denigrating all middle-aged women's faces. I think that's disappointing, really, because Botox might be the choice for women with disposable incomes, but it's not the choice for everybody. And I would question whether or not Botox is a particularly feminist activity anyway. Whether it's actually much more about the internalized misogyny that women, especially of my age, often feel, but much younger women are now feeling that huge pressure. We see campaigns and hear all the time about bodily autonomy, facial autonomy for young women, but we hear very, very little about the negative and damaging effects that misogyny and internalized misogyny has on older women. Every product that you'll see has a beauty product, has an anti-aging line within it. And that, I think, is discriminatory. I saw one the other day that was promoting anti-aging serums that were vegan because that's ethical. Whereas I don't really think there's very much that's ethical about making middle-aged women feel awful for the very natural thing of aging. So girls as young as 14, I read now, are trying to get Botox because they're terrified about the way they look. They're terrified of getting older. They're terrified of wrinkles. And I feel it myself. I tint my hair. Here we have me. Let's have a look. There you go. Growing out my greys. Because I'm tired of feeling oppressed for being myself. I'm tired and exhausted by the feeling that I've failed or that I'm shameful or that just being myself is something to be embarrassed about. I think we need to teach ourselves that, and I think we need to tell our daughters, and in some cases our granddaughters, that there is nothing wrong with being older and there's nothing wrong with looking older. And despite the billions of dollars and pounds that's generated by this push for us all to chemically and surgically modify our faces and our bodies, actually, I think if we worked far more on the autonomy of women to be as we are and the luck that we have in getting older, that would be much more useful. My brother died when he was 17 years old. He died on Christmas Day, 1978. I was 12. And I guess for me, I've always appreciated the gift of life, really, and the joy of aging. And I think we allow that in men. We have men with grey hair, we have men with very visible wrinkles still working, still performing. And I think we really do, for my campaign's sake and for the sake of our generation, our own generation, my demographic, but for the generations to come, we need to start looking at how ageism is enabled and promoted in society. As I always say with my campaigning, on screen, men have a whole life and women have a shelf life. Thanks so much. Bye.